back to the Stat Lines Matter Fantasy Breakdown Show. I am Rob Hunter. We are down a man this week, but Mark Stewart will be back soon. Joining with us as always is Anthony Lukasik, and we are here to break down a couple of games from the Week 8 slate. What's up, Anthony?
How you doing, Rob? Nice to be here, man.
Hey, I am hanging tough like new kids on the block. Are you tough enough?
Oh yeah, man. I feel that. It's been
You
a
might be
week
too
already.
young to remember that song.
Nah, I'm good. I'm a little bit older.
You remember new kids on the block hanging tough?
Oh yeah, for sure. The original boy
Are
band.
you
Come
tough
on,
enough?
man.
Rough. Nothing says tough like NKOTB.
Oh Jesus. I think my wife will
So,
like that
so how'd
throwback.
you make out last week?
We did pretty good. Most of my teams did really, really well. I had one game where I was close, but didn't quite make it. But otherwise, yeah, all around it's looking really good. The season's starting to really come into its own now.
Yeah. I did pretty good too. Kind of had some weird stuff happen because I had a Thursday night game where I tried to add a tight end. I tried to add Juwan Johnson, but it just didn't go through because I didn't get the ad drop in quick enough. So I ended up losing by 1.5 points. But in my DFS games, I did well, particularly on the afternoon slate. So yeah, it was a really good, I won't say really good weekend, but anytime you end up in the green, particularly when you're playing for money, it's all good.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Juwan Johnson going off for 2 TDs last week. That was nuts. That was cool.
Yeah. I had him pegged. I finally, because I was going back and forth between him and Noah Fant, and I saw that the Cards, I believe, was it the Cards they played? The Cards were they were 31st against tight ends, and I saw his targets the previous week, and I went ahead and I submitted it, but it just didn't go through. So that was just like a really tough pill to swallow because I ended up adding Noah Fant because of obviously the scuttlebutt about him in the previous week saying it was a pretty good ad, but he only had one catch. So and then to lose by 1.5 points was that was tough to swallow. When I was like, I had him, I won him, but I just didn't get him in. But other than that, pretty good week. And even though we lost that game, I still felt good about the call. So just from a fantasy from a fantasy scouting perspective, like, well, at least I got the call right, even though I didn't get a chance to get him in play. At least I got the call right. So overall, though, it's been a okay DFS season, a little up and down. Sometimes touchdowns are hard to predict, and with DFS, it's always about, particularly in football, it's always about guys getting in the end zone for the most part. So, but it's been better the past 3 weeks after I'm getting my sea legs up under me. Josh Jacobs, what he did really helped me out.
Yeah, Josh Jacobs is another guy we're going to be going over a little bit later tonight. Yeah, he's been on a tear lately, for sure. That Juwan Johnson call would have been great. Fantastic. The only place I have him is on my dynasty team, but I have him behind Pitts and Pat Freiermuth, actually.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would never have really considered him for my active lineup, and in my redraft league, I went Taysom Hill. So,
Well, it was both I had one tight end hurt and Logan Thomas, and Goddard was on bye. So that's why it was one of those things where I was just toiling over. And I hate those Thursday night games and season long because if you have guys playing, because you end up sometimes having to make decisions, and it's tough because the news that Logan Thomas was officially out didn't come till like 4:30, 5 o'clock, somewhere around there. So once I got the news, that's when I sort of went into overdrive on the homework. And so me pegging Juwan Johnson, and he didn't get those touchdowns until late, but I still felt pretty good. At least I scouted the call, but it just didn't work out from an implementation perspective. But that and to be honest with you, I still had I started Rondell Moore, and I believe like the first play of the game he caught like a 30-yard reception. And then that was his only target of the game. And I've started him over Christian Kirk. If I just would have kept Kirk in, I still would have won. So, but that's the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. And you'd love to trust one of the tight ends out of Seattle. I mean, they got some really talented guys up there, but the fact is they got 3 guys that they're utilizing right now. And so that just kind of makes it tough.
You talking about at the tight end spot?
Yeah,
Oh,
for Seattle.
well, yeah, but Disley's still only getting like 2, maybe 3 targets a game. Noah Fant was the guy that was the one that was kind of eating up the target share, and he was actually running the most routes. As Disley's, normally used as more of a run blocking tight end, and I'm sorry, and Fant was more used for the passing down. So it was a tough spot. And
Usually,
like
but
those
Parkinson is still
Thursday
involved
night games,
too.
and then if you do start a guy on Thursday night, it's just kind of weird, right? Because they're off their routine, and a lot of
Mhm.
times I believe that was the first game where we actually had some real scoring going on. Up until then, those Thursday night games are normally clunkers.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
anyway, yeah, I was, like I said, I was glad I had it down, but I don't like Thursday night games in my obviously I play main slates in DFS, but I don't like Thursday night game in my season long action at all, at all, because they just play weird. I mean, they're off the their schedules off, the practice times are off, the meetings are off, everything is off. I think they need to get rid of the Thursday night game. That's my opinion.
Yeah, well, I'm sure Amazon was pretty happy with the last one after the ones before that were all just duds.
Yeah, I mean, look, if we can get another one like that, and we can get them like that every week. We want some more Thursday night games, but I think the scoring is down in those games, and I think it's just due to guys not being ready to go back out there and play. Play was a 60-minute football game. At that level, takes a toll on the body. So I understand it's the answer to any real question. This is why I forget where I heard this is money, and it's another day to generate revenue, and that's why they do it. And it's probably not going anywhere for that specific reason. They just added another week 17, for that specific reason. So if anything, we'll probably get a game on Wednesday night. They said they wouldn't touch Friday night, but I don't put it past that day is supposed to be sanctimonious for high school. But you leave it
Yeah,
up to the NFL. If they can make dollars from it, they'll find a way to get that game in. So we'll see.
for sure, for sure.
All right, so Anthony, are you ready to break down the our first game?
Oh, always ready.
All right, because
Always ready.
I was looking in your eyes. You didn't look like you. I'm kidding. All right, so the first game that we have, I believe, is the Raiders. The Raiders going against the Saints. Uh, Wait a minute. Is that the first game? Yeah, the
It's
first
one
game
of
was
the
Raiders
three.
Saints.
Doesn't really matter.
First
So
first
we'll be
game we
breaking.
got on the docket is Raiders Saints. Over under is 50. Raiders favored by 2. How do you see this one playing out? Give us some guys that you want to see. Give us some help on that game. Give us some guys that you got pegged.
For sure, yeah. So we'll be covering 3 games tonight. We'll be breaking down 3, and for this one, we'll start with New Orleans. Leading the way, we have Alvin Kamara, Super Camario. He's been incredible the last 3 games since his injury, going over 100 total yards in each of them. The Raiders have been surprisingly good though against the run, giving up only 4.1 yards per carry. That's good enough for 4th best in the league. So this one could be a little tough. This game's going to be a little bit tough to call. Andy Dalton is actually getting the starting nod this week. But Jameis is healthy, so if Dalton struggles at all, we could see a swap at the quarterback position. So you definitely don't want to start either of these guys going into this game for fantasy purposes. Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry are also still not practicing. Um, right now, it's projected that they're probably going to miss this game, which makes Olave the de facto number 1 target to go to. Rocky Sin has been incredible for the Raiders in the passing game, and he may or may not shadow Olave. And so, if you want to look elsewhere, Rashid Shaheed is an interesting flyer for like DFS purposes. But I do expect most of the attention to go to Olave, so you could see him break 1 or 2 out there.
Yeah,
Anybody on the?
oh yeah, I have Olave at 6K on DraftKings. I have Olave as a lot. Averaging 9.3 targets a game, going up against the 32nd defense against receivers. That's just a guy you're not going to be able to get away from. Speak on the Raider side.
Yeah, on the other side of the ball, Josh Jacobs has been on fire, as we were talking about. In the last 3 games, he's scored the ball 6 times, and so over 150 yards a game in that span as well. The dude's trying to earn his second contract. And so if he keeps playing like this, especially against this now, this is the game that I think that he should have circled on his calendar, because if he can play like he's been playing against the Saints in what's traditionally a tough run defense, the dude's going to get his big money second contract guaranteed. I don't know if it's going to be with the Raiders or somewhere else, but this dude is on fire and he's lighting it up. He's going to need to take over and dominate this game. That would be fantastic for his career. And I think he'll have the opportunity too.
Go ahead.
Derek Carr, the quarterback there is, he'll remain a streaming option. I'm not looking for, great things from him against this defense. But you can stream him if you need to. Devontae Adams has been solid all season long. I don't expect a massive game from him here, but his floor is solid. Nothing to be concerned about there. Darren Waller is actually back at practice. He's been nursing a hamstring. He'll have actually the chance to play. So Hunter Renfrow, who's been completely nuked into oblivion with the arrival of Devontae Adams, he's only a guy that you're going to be looking for if Darren Waller doesn't suit up. But with Waller having the chance to play, I would not trust Renfrow in my lineup if Waller does in fact suit up. And lastly, Mac Hollins, he could get a look or two here over the top, but I would say he remains a DFS play only as well. For me, the spotlight of this game is going to be kind of a dart throw, as I expect, both teams can beat you, a few different ways. And so it's really going to depend on what the defense is trying to script against. Neither one of them is exceptional. And so I kind of expect I'm looking at Josh Jacobs and Chris Olave as the must show up players in this game. And then Alvin Kamara to take over this game completely if Dennis Allen actually decides to utilize him, correctly and commit to him. It'll be an interesting one to watch.
Yeah, I looking at this game from a DFS perspective, you got Derek Carr coming in at 5.9K with the Raiders to in a 50-point over/under game with the Raiders favored by 2. That's going to be a hard price to get away from. He's probably my favorite quarterback going into Sunday. The Raiders pass 68% of the time on the road, 60% overall, and that's including obviously the big games that Josh Richardson has been having over the past 2 to 3 weeks. Obviously, him playing the worst run defense in the league, and the Texans, they were probably going to have a game script that favored the run game. But the Saints are still giving up 4.7 yards a carry. So if you wanted to look to him, his price has been spiked a little bit. It's all the way up to 7,500. And Devontae Adams is always going to be a solid play against whichever cornerback that he faces. But his targets have been buoyed really by the first week's numbers, which I believe he was targeted 17 times. He hasn't reached double-digit targets, I believe, in 3 weeks, including last week's game. But again, that was a run scripted game. I look for this to go back and forth game. The Saints are giving up the 31st most points per game at almost 29 points a game. So you can really pick, which guy you want to. If you want to spend the salary on Devontae Adams, I believe he's 8.6K of your 50K on DraftKings. You can. I think that play is perfectly fine. But the guy that I'm looking forward to getting a hold to is Derek Carr. That's the guy that at 5.9K, he really allows you to get up to some other guys like Derrick Henry. He's going up against the Texans, I believe, this weekend. So it's a guy that you're not going to. I think Derrick Henry is going to be in a smash spot because he's been getting, I believe last game he got 30 carries a game. So that's a guy that I'll be looking forward to. So I'll be looking to pay down at some other spots. So I know you mentioned that if Darren Waller, plays or doesn't play, that you'd be looking to get to Renfrow, but he didn't play last week, and I believe Renfrow was only targeted 3 times, and Mac Hollins was only targeted about 2 or 3 times. So what is it? Just a difference in the way that the Saints play defense? What would make you look to Renfrow? Is it just based on basically what he's done in the past, meaning last year? Because this year, like you said, he hasn't really been a part of the game plan as much. What would make you look to Renfrow instead of maybe Foster? Is it Foster Moreau? Not maybe, because that's a guy that I'll be looking to if Waller didn't play. I'll be looking more towards Foster as opposed to Renfrow. That's me.
I mean, yeah, possibly. If the Saints pass rush is getting home, then Foster Moreau's that quick tight end target that Derek Carr could try to hit. But yeah, you would have expected more production out of Renfro or Hollins last week against the Texans with Darren Waller out, and it didn't happen. Josh Jacobs just took over that game, and so um, in this one, I expect sometimes game scripts just go that way. Things just kind of get blown up and a team just kind of gets off script and just one player just goes off. That's just what happens. And this one, if they're able to kind of stick to what they like to do, typically speaking, they like to try to get their secondary options and a lot of targets. And Adams is still going to get most of the attention on the defensive side of the ball, and so you can't run every play.
Yeah, I mean, no, that's true. So we have our next game up on the docket. We got San Francisco visiting Los Angeles. So this is, I guess, you will be some version of a backyard brawl. Over under in this game is 43.5, with San Francisco favored by 1.5. So basically, it's a darn near pick 'em. How do you see this one breaking down, Anthony? Who do you like?
Yeah, before we get into that, Rob, we had a question up there about
Oh,
some
okay.
defensive plays for the week. Did you want to? Do we want to get that in between games?
No, I can get. I mean, I'm never. Oh, okay. So the Bills, Eagles. Who are the Bills playing this week?
The Bills are playing the Packers, and the Eagles are playing the Steelers.
That's okay. I would probably lean more towards the Eagles,
Hmm.
just due to obviously, for obvious reasons. Kenny Pickett until he proves that that he can handle. I mean, actually I thought last week he was in a smash spot and he struggled. So going up against the Eagles, coming off, I believe they're coming off a bye. I would take the Eagles, and I was about to say that I'm never ever benching the Bills defense, but in this particular scenario, I would lean more towards the Eagles, especially if they're playing at home.
Yeah, you got two monsters to choose from there, and it's pretty crazy that you have both of those defenses to choose from. I'd almost just trade one of them because at this point you probably could. But yeah, with the Bills, I think the Bills are the safer play because they should still get some sacks on Aaron Rodgers. That offensive line has not been protecting him too well, but he's traditionally pretty careful with the ball, so I don't expect a lot of turnovers in this one. With the Eagles going against Pittsburgh, yeah, I think Kenny Pickett is much looser with the ball. You have much higher probability for turnovers in this one. Maybe not so much on the sack way. So it's like, do you want to play it safer with the Bills defense, or do you want to shoot for the upside with the Eagles? I think is really the question, and that's based on how you like to handle your roster.
Yeah, yeah, and Aaron Rodgers is just, even though he's been careful with the ball, he still has had a hard time, um, connecting with his receivers. The two receiving touchdowns last week went to Aaron Jones. So and what's interesting about Aaron Rodgers, last week, because I actually faced him, I'm thinking I'm good. I'm thinking I'm good. This is a game that he didn't play that well, and he threw that last touchdown to Aaron Jones within, I believe, it was the last 2 minutes. And I'm like, oh, but you can never count out a guy like that. So that's why I lean more towards the Eagles.
For
So
sure.
okay, so was that okay? Is that okay? That's the only question we have right now. Okay, so let's get to the 49ers. Let's get to this 49er backyard brawl game. And how do you see this one breaking down at 43 over under? How do you see this one breaking down?
Yeah, it's
Who
not
you
a high over under. They're not. It's not a high point total expected in this one, and nor should you. The Rams running game and the Niners passing games have been pretty much non-existent, and so oddly enough, San Francisco's running game is also tied for the worst in yards per carry at 3.5. With Shanahan being the guru of running football, that's really surprising. But they just traded for Christian McCaffrey, and so now that McCaffrey is fully acclimated now after having a full week plus the 2 days.
Yeah,
But
he knows
even
it like the back of his hand, right?
the 2 days that he got with the team before their last game, though, he still had what 10 rushes for like 62 yards or something like that. He still looked good. That was really
Two
impressive.
catches. Yeah.
And so we'll see how much they decide to script him in with a full week under his belt now. But I don't expect Jeff Wilson to go away altogether. Let's be real. Shanahan and his Hanigans. I think I got that right. Right, nailed it. He likes to cycle through his running backs like none other. He's going to pull different guys. Different guys are going to goal line carries. I wouldn't be surprised if Tyrion David Price got a touchdown in this game. You know what I mean? That's just kind of what Kyle Shanahan does. And so I
Yeah.
think Jeff Wilson is still likely going to get some work, but he's more of an emergency play in like really deeper formats only. Um, you know, the the Niners are also giving up the second most sacks in the league as well. The Niners quarterback has been sacked 24 times, and so Garoppolo has been passable as a streamer. He's doing his best to reach for that QB1 territory. Falling just shy of it each of the last 3 weeks, but I do expect the Rams defense to kind of harry him in this game. It's going to be kind of tough. Um, he's been struggling a little bit to kind of put the games away. He's been solid, but not great. And so Kittle, on the other hand, though, is come on kind of lately. Kittle's got 14 receptions on 19 targets for 181 yards and one touchdown over the last 2 games. And so it's tough to see that trend continuing, but you do like to see some signs of life out of him this season. Debo has posted solid double-digit points all season long. Kind of struggled last week against Kansas City. Now he's pulled up with a hamstring issue, and he was actually did not practice today. So Debo, you might want to be careful if you're looking at playing Debo this week. Meanwhile, Brandon Ayuk has been targeted 11 times in each of the last 2 games, hauling in 15 total, over 80 yards in each game. He got scored twice 2 weeks ago in Atlanta. And so, Ayuk and Kittle are the kind of have the hot hands right now. We'll see if that continues against the Rams here. What do you think, Rob? You got anybody you want to zoom in here on this side of the ball?
Well, okay, again, DFS purposes, Jimmy Garoppolo, again, this was a guy that I was really looking at playing in some of the general prize pool, the GPP stuff over at DraftKings. If you look at where he's been over the past 3 games, he's averaging about 20 points a game. Now, the game script has had a little bit to do with that, especially playing the Chiefs the last game, them being down so much. But in DFS, in fantasy, you don't care if the team wins or loses, man. You just want numbers. Now, the question is whether or not, obviously, the Rams are going to be able to put them in that position. They played them, I believe, back in week 4, and that was the Jeff Wilson game. But over the past 3 weeks, Garoppolo's played very, very well, as you had mentioned. And in the DFS, if you look, if Debo doesn't play, I would certainly look more. Kittle might doggone be a lock for me if Debo doesn't play, and I will look to maybe get some shares of McCaffrey. Because obviously with the pass catching out of the backfield, obviously, Debo played that role. McCaffrey's just going to slide perfectly into there. I don't expect Jeff Wilson to go away, but they didn't trade away all that draft capital to not get Caffrey his 15 to 20 touches per game. And obviously we know what he can do with that. So if he doesn't play, talking about Debo, if Debo doesn't play, I would certainly be looking to get a lot of shares of Kerry. I was about to say Kerry Kittle. I would be looking to get some shares of Kittle, and I'd definitely be looking to get some shares of Caffrey. They have him matched up against Ernest Jones, who allows an 84% catch rate for tight ends. So that would certainly be something that I would look to exploit. Why don't you speak on the Rams side of things?
Yeah, on the other side of the ball, the Rams can they turn things around coming out of their bye? That's the big question, right? And so McVay's offense has been surprisingly stagnant this whole season, middling in both yards per carry and yards per attempt. And so, they finally turned around a little bit over the last couple of games that they played. They did manage to break 300 total yards on offense in both those games, which is kind of sad that that's the bar we're at with the defending Super Bowl champs. That's how low the bar has gotten. But hey, it's nice to see some kind of sides of life from that offense at all. And so, Matt Stafford, though, he's only thrown 6 TDs on the season, and he's already up to 8 picks on the year. Been sacked 22 times this season. Going back to last year, 30 times all of last season. He's already at 22 this year. He's been getting knocked around. Yeah. And we know Stafford does not play well when he's getting hit all the time. It's kind of like Brady in that regard.
And most quarterbacks don't, right? Burrow seems to be the only one that could take a licking and keep on ticking.
Yeah, he just don't care. He's like, all right, next play, let's go.
Yeah,
for sure. In the backfield there, as I mentioned, almost non-existent running game. Darrell Henderson has got 121 combined yards over the last 3 games total. Like, holy gross, right? And the Cam Akers continues to be MIA, citing philosophical differences. We're looking at him on the trade block, looking to get traded. The Niners snagged CMC right from under the Rams here too, and so this is going to be really interesting to see what kind of utilization McCaffrey gets against this team. But that could be fun to watch. Cooper Kupp has been the lone bright spot on this offense, and he's continuing to dominate each and every week. And I'll be honest, thank baby Jesus for that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how he does it. Like, because you look up, like you'll be watching the game and like one quarter will go by, 2 quarters will go by, third, and the next thing you know, you just see him in the end zone giving one of his teammates a hug, and he scored. If nothing else happened for the Rams, Cooper Kupp is going to score. From a DFS perspective, with his price being at 9.6K, you need him to get off. And lately, he hasn't necessarily been getting off, but he's been getting in the end zone. If Darrell Henderson doesn't play and Cam Akers obviously isn't going to play, the only play I see here would be Malcolm Brown at 4.6K. And I believe they just got, I believe it's Darrell Williams back from IR today. They activated him. So, I mean, those are just basically dart throws. But in this matchup, is Cooper Kupp on the Rams side, is Cooper Kupp or nothing. I mean, you could look at maybe trying or Higbee. Higbee's been targeted.
Higbee's another one it's a dart throw.
Yeah, but he's been targeted a ton, this year. And look, it's all about, we talked about this last time. It's all about where is the ball going and ADOT, average depth of target. But you want your guy to be a part of the game plan. When they run out on the field, you want to feel confident. This guy is going to be able to get. If he's a running back, he's going to be getting his touches. If he's a receiver, he's going to be getting his targets. And at the tight end position, we got 2 tight ends here that are pretty heavily involved in the game plan. If anything, I think you could probably look to Higbee because chances are the Rams are going to be behind. So he would be a guy that I would look to. I mean, that's
Kyren Williams, by the way. Kyren Williams, the rookie running back for Notre Dame.
Kyren Williams, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Kyren Williams. Look like we got a
designated to return from IR. So, yep, good call.
All right, so we had a question here that says, should I trade Pittman for Najee and Goddard in a deep PPR league? 16-man starting tight end is Taysom Hill, and I am 3-4. My wide receivers are Juju and Chase, and my running backs are Pierce and Damian Harris. Okay. I think, yes, I would do that because I'm thinking, here's what I'm thinking. I was about to give a Showtime Eddie Murphy reference, but nobody's seen Showtime, so never mind. Anyway, I just don't know what you're going to get with Pittman with Sam Ehlinger at quarterback. And I think that what you were getting with Pittman, even in the beginning of the season, I'm not necessarily here to say that it was fool's gold, but I am saying that offense wants to be a run-first offense. So even if Matt Ryan was still there, I don't know how long the Pittman thing was going to last. Obviously, game script can change anything, but they want to run the ball and they want to play defense. So I would if I had to. Now I understand that Najee hasn't been able to put up the numbers, but he's one of those guys. He's going to get his touches, and Goddard is actually probably a top 5 tight end. So yes, I would probably make that move now.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Najee is one of those guys who hasn't been having a great season, but he's such a top-tier talent that, even in tough matchups, he could potentially turn that around at any point in time. He does have that upside. And obviously, yeah, Goddard's a great option. And I would definitely like Najee over Damian Harris on my roster. I mean, your receivers are good. You got Chase, which you can lean on, and Juju. It's harder to find a running back on the waiver wire than it is a wide receiver. You can kind of almost stream a third wide receiver if you need it. And so I would definitely lock up that running back position a little bit tighter for sure.
Yeah, I mean, running backs are like gold. I mean, in our league, and I was telling our podcast partner earlier today, I was telling him, I said, man, running backs seemingly get hurt every week, and they're it's hard to keep one going. I mean, the guy that I have right now is Rashard Penny. I haven't been able to find a replacement for him. Yet, I've got Mostert and I've got Nick Chubb in the season long, but still just trying to find a guy that I can plug in, for that third spot. And I've had him there for 3 weeks. So yeah, if you can get a guy like Najee, a guy who's a 3, and also he's a 3-down back. And that's, so even if you have a starter, even though I got Chubb, they still run Kareem Hunt out there on third downs. And sometimes, and I've said this on this show before, sometimes I don't even think that they have to do that. I just think that it's the trend right now, and everybody feels like they have to have a third down back, somebody else to come in. But Nick Chubb has shown that he can catch the ball and he can take it. He can take it the distance. Not that Kareem Hunt can't, but I don't understand. When you have a bell cow back, I don't understand why you bring it in. A guy on third down just for third down's sake. Unless he's obviously like a real scat back. I don't understand why. Oh, it's third and long, maybe, something like that. But yeah, if you can get my point is, if you can get you a 3-down back, get him.
For especially
sure. Over
absolutely.
So we've got one more game here. Anthony, we've got Arizona going against the Vikings, 49-point over under. Minnesota looks like they're favored by 3.5. Man, break it down for us, Anthony.
Yeah, for sure. And let me remind everybody that I do my analytics based off of redraft purposes for a half-point PPR league, 4 point per touchdown for the quarterback position, just to keep us all on the same page here. The Arizona offense will start on that side of the ball. Both James Conner and Darrell Williams returned to practice today, and so I think that actually kind of makes starting any member of the Arizona backfield kind of a terrifying prospect. Eno Benjamin has obviously been getting his workload and is going to continue to get his workload. James Conner, we don't really know how healthy he is and if he could re-aggravate the injury, right? And then Darrell Williams looks to be third in that pecking order. What happens if he starts milking some of that those touches away from the other guys, right? And so what's the split going to be like? I'm not really sure how this one's going to shake out. I'm kind of hands off on this one for now. The Vikings defense has been moderately strong against the running backs this season, so I'm not really forcing a play here if I don't have to. Solid but not spectacular has pretty much defined Kyler Murray's season this year. He'll have the opportunity here to actually kind of take control. The Vikings have a decent but beatable defense. They've been allowing 68.6% completion percentage. So, that could make it a little bit easier for Murray to keep the sticks moving and really start to sustain some drives. And once he gets into a rhythm, he's really hard to stop. DeAndre Hopkins came back last week, new cop wins. And boy, does it look like Hollywood Brown got taller, doesn't it? 10 completions on 14 targets over 100 yards. Do you think he missed his favorite target? Rondale Moore remains a sneaky start here. Kind of a risky play, but he's pretty much just a ticking time bomb waiting to go off. It's kind of tough to justify forcing him into a lineup, though, with Greg Dortch, Robbie Anderson, and AJ Green still all maintaining a piece of this very limited passing game pie. And don't forget Zach Ertz, who has only had less than 6 receptions in 2 games so far this season. And so, it outside of Hopkins and Ertz, it's tough to kind of start any of those wide receivers. They just spread the ball around so much outside of those two. What about you? Are you looking for any of these guys in DFS?
Hopkins is I believe he's underpriced at 7.4K. And obviously, I started Rondale Moore. I've started him actually the past 2 weeks. Because the scuttlebutt coming out of training camp was not only did he have a really good training camp, but he was actually their best player overall. Now I just dropped him for Wan'Dale Robinson, but and this will be the week that he'll go absolutely nuts, and I'm prepared to live with that reality.
Sometimes you just got to eat it, But no, Wan'Dale's been turning up,
Well, he had 8 targets at halftime. And he had a little injury, but he had 8 targets, 6 catches, 50 yards receiving. Here I am talking about a whole other player that's not in the not in the breakdown, but
that's a good flow. It's good.
But when you
Wan'Dale's
look
off
at
the injury report too, though.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Wan'Dale's off the injury report too, though.
He was a full participant in practice. So he was a guy that it's a guy I'm like, you want targets, and it doesn't matter how explosive Rondale Moore was in the 7-on-7s and in their practice, in August and July. If you ain't gonna throw him the ball, particularly, and I thought it was particularly shocking, given the injuries that have happened with AJ Green and some of the struggles that they've had at that spot, and given how explosive he can be when he gets the ball in his hands. So, but if it just was looking to me that it's one thing to not be productive, and they're trying to make you a part of the game plan. It's an entirely different thing, and I understand. And it's not like they were shading the defense to his side; they shading the defense to DeAndre Hopkins. And they have,
Of course.
like you said, you have a tight end that's getting 8 targets a game. So it's not like they giving him all the defense. So, when I saw that, I just felt like it was time to move away. Obviously, on the Minnesota side, you got your usual characters. You've got Justin Jefferson, who I think is fine. Dalvin Cook, who I think is fine. And, they had talked about a shoulder injury in the previous weeks. Doesn't seem to be slowing him down. Kirk Cousins is fine. I think on this side of the ball, though, you can definitely look. I mean, Arizona's been giving up points and having just poor showings on defense all year long. And I think that if you wanted to go there, those guys are a little bit priced up. They're not gonna. I want to say they're not gonna allow. They won't allow you the flexibility. And I believe that. If I had to go with one player, it would probably be Justin Jefferson. But but on the other side, I just think that the game script is going to favor the DeAndre Hopkins, and so that's probably the one guy that I would look at sticking with is Hopkins, because Murray hasn't shown the big the propensity to put up big games this season, and again, all you want in DFS is you want targets, you want opportunities. And I think that if the guy came back and he had 10 catches and 14 targets and he's at $7,500, $7.5K, that's a guy that I believe you can get to, because I think he's underpriced right now. So, that's my take. And you gotta love the over under, 49.5. Those are games that you want to be a part of. So Right now, as I'm crunching my teams, he's a guy that I'm looking at.
Yeah, DeAndre Hopkins could be a great value pick in this one. And for the most part, I completely agree with your take on the Minnesota offense as well. The only thing I would add is between KJ Osborne and Adam Thielen, it's tough to tell who will get it, but I think there are some auxiliary points to be had in this one. Buyer beware, though. It could easily end up being Irv Smith Jr. So it's going to be a gamble no matter which way you go, but you could take a gamble with one of those guys. For me, the spotlight in this game actually easily goes to Justin Jefferson. I think he's going to have a great game in this one. Look, even the best DBs struggle against route runners like Kupp and Justin Jefferson. I'll get there.
Yeah.
Byron Murphy's been shutting down everybody's number one. So everyone's going to be watching this matchup, and I think that Jefferson's going to come out on top on this one. So start him up with confidence.
Yeah, and I think you hit on something with Justin Jefferson, and you kind of mentioned it, in the weeks before, in his average depth of target, and his average depth of target is 10.5 yards. That's and he's getting 10.5 targets. So you rarely see that big chunk of an average depth of target with that type of target volume. And when you get both of those, that's when you get those big plays. That's when that when they're drawing up plays for him, they're basically looking to get him the ball. They're basically, all those air yards, they're basically looking to get him the ball downfield. And big plays is what win you tournaments, is what win you cash, it's what wins you leagues. So Justin Jefferson's a great call.
Well, thank you.
Hey, I mean, look. I was playing around with that stat a little bit before you mentioned it, and I had seen it because I just got the subscription to Pro Football Focus. So I saw a dot and they had the key, and I was trying to figure out what it meant, and it said it was average depth of target. And then you had mentioned it. So obviously, you being a guy that I respect so much, in the fantasy, in the pro football fantasy world, it made me pay attention to it a little bit more. So now when I'm crunching my teams and crunching my numbers, I've seen a direct correlation to targets and average depth. I've seen that directly correlating to big plays and points. So it's
great for
something
DFS.
that I don't think you can look at it lightly.
Correct. Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. It's a great stat they've been tracking lately.
Yes. So do you have any sleepers, starts, or sits, or any recommendations for this coming up week?
Always. I always got all the information all you guys need to win your fantasy weeks. Make sure you keep tuning in for sure. This week, my streaming quarterback of the week is going to be Danny Dimes against Seattle, visiting Seattle. He's my streamer of the week. At the running back position, I like Chuba Hubbard at Atlanta. He's a little bit banged up, so monitor that. If he doesn't play, you might have to give it. No, he didn't. And so keep an eye on that. The report was that it was a kind of a mild injury. He could have actually gone back into the game last week if he needed to. And so, there might have been some after the game swelling and things like that. Hopefully that'll come down by the time the weekend comes on. But you may have to pivot off Hubbard late. And so just be aware of that. But, Atlanta's they're a bottleneck run defense. And so I kind of expect Deonta Foreman to struggle up the middle between the tackles in this one. But I do think that Hubbard can get it done on the perimeter. Drake London, other side of the ball in this game. I like him for squeaky wheel gets the grease kind of a situation here. He might have a little bit of a bounce back week this week.
Yeah.
Beware. It could also be Pitts. Pitts needs some of that loving too. And so I'm not sure we can get production from both in this one. But I do think you have a good shot at one of the two. And so take your bet on that one.
I think with Drake only getting one target, generally you see some positive regression because what happens is the offensive coordinator, everybody knows, particularly when your number one receiver only gets one target. And on the one target, he had the one catch. So I really like that call. I played him last week because I thought the game script would favor.
I told you not to.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't tell. We didn't do a show last week.
Bet. Oh, I did.
Oh,
you didn't watch it.
Well, yeah. Maybe, yeah. Hey, I would have. I trust me, I would have. But yeah, I think that the Drake London. What I'm telling you is I'm not gonna miss the Drake London blow up game this week. I'm still gonna play him, and he's also on DraftKings. His salary dropped $800, so I'll be right back on the Drake London train, hoping that I'll catch his first big blow up game.
Good luck. I'm not saying it's not scary.
No, it's super scary. But in GPPs, you're looking for leverage on the field, right? And you know that
for sure.
So I think that Drake London is probably. I mean, right now he's projected for less than 5% ownership, and that's what you're looking for. So I think that at 5.1K. Okay, here's the thing that I can bank on. I can bank on the fact that he's probably going to get more than one target this week. And so even if he doesn't blow up, if he gives me 10 points with his salary being so low, that's something that I could absorb and still cash. And you could possibly still win the tournament. Of course, he can't give you one reception, but if he gives you 3-4 receptions for 60, 70 yards, you're at 11 points, you're at 10 points. It's not going to totally sink your lineup, and his cost is low enough to where you can, you can pay up for some of those guys that I was talking about earlier. So that's the logic. He's leverage on the field, and he's due, basically.
Definitely a low cost, high reward play for sure.
Yeah.
And then to close out my starts for the week, my tight end streamer this week is going to be Hayden Hurst going against Cleveland, visiting Cleveland this week. I like Joe Burrow's been taking over lately, and I definitely like Hayden Hurst to show up in this one. On the flip side of that, my sits for the week, I'm going to go with Rodgers against Buffalo, Aaron Rodgers. Absolutely. If you don't know, you better go look, because it's been gnarly over there. And now Alan Lazard is all banged up. He's been spotted sporting a sling, on his shoulder. At the running back position, I'm going to go ahead and say bench the Gus Bus. Again, going against Tampa Bay this week. I think that, it's a little bit of a risky proposition. I'd give it another week before you rush him into your lineup. I like what he did last week. I like how he looked. I liked him in his return. I'm just, against this defense, and I'd like to see how the team kind of mixes his utilization in over more than a one-game sample size. And then Christian Kirk going against Denver will be my wide receiver sit for the week. And then for tight end position, this one's a weird one. I got Greg Dulcich against Jacksonville. Now this guy has been all the rage, is flying up the pickup charts and the trending charts and all that. Everybody's loving Greg Dulcich everywhere. And I like the idea. I'm not gonna lie, I really like the idea. Here's the problem: Russell Wilson looks like he'll be is training to play this week in London, and we haven't seen him use tight ends consistently throughout his career. Usually he only throws them a few passes per game. And so, without Wilson playing even decently this year, we haven't even seen it yet. So I'd be wary to trust kind of any of the receiving pieces in this game. It is a London game though. And so crazy stuff happens. Guys show up out of nowhere. If you want to take that wild swing for the fences dart throw, go for it,
Yeah, I was about to say something about that. I was like, man, those London games, man, those
They just
London.
seem weird, right? Weird stuff
Yes, it's like a
happens in London.
Thursday night game, man.
Yeah.
It's like a
Yeah.
Thursday night game, man. And then you know what's funny is I sometimes I miss those London games. Like I forget that the London game is even on.
Me too. I always you got to remember to check your lineups for this one to make sure you set your lineups early. If you're not waking up early Sunday morning, make sure you set them Saturday night for the London games.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I've got two starts this week. I actually have more, but I've got two starts this week. I mentioned one earlier. I think this is a pay up week. And remember, I'm talking about fantasy. I'm not talking about season long. So, but it's Derrick Henry at 8,400. Obviously, if you have Derrick Henry in season long, you're never going to sit him. But I believe this is I haven't rostered him all year, but that I'll be using Derrick. He's going up against the Texans. Running backs have been eating against the Texans all week. You need to look no further back than 1 week and see what Josh Richardson did. Derrick Henry has faced some really tough defenses. He's facing really some tough defenses to start out the season. The schedule actually lightens up a little bit. I think they're really gonna feed him even a little. Maybe it's hard to feed him more than 30 carries. But if you're starting a rookie quarterback and you're going up against one of the worst rush defenses, they're giving up 5.3 yards a carry. I think this is a smash. But we haven't seen that smash game from him yet, where he's gotten that 3-4 touchdown game and he's rushed for 200 yards. We haven't seen that yet. I think this is the week that he does it. And I've mentioned my other play is Chris. We talked about it before.
Olave.
Olave, is it Olave? He know he from Dayton. It ain't pronounced like that. But the receiver from Chris Olave, the receiver for the Saints in that big total, that 50-point total. He's in the past 3 out of 6 weeks, he's gotten 13, I believe 14 targets. That's the type of eating that we want. And the Raiders have shown a propensity to give up big plays to receivers all year. And Vegas is rarely wrong. And what we do know is those teams, they're going to throw. They're going to throw some more, and they're going to throw some more. And you look at what Andy Dalton did last week, throwing for 350 yards. And this defense isn't going to cause him any more resistance than the Cardinals did. I think Chris at that price at 6K, I think he's a perfect. I think he's, but now, unlike Drake London, he's probably going to draw some ownership, probably closer to 20% range, maybe even get up to 25% range. But I'm not getting away from him. So those will be my two guys. And if you want another one, I mentioned it earlier, I'm probably going to play Derek Carr because he allows me to get to some of those other big plays, like I mentioned, the DeAndre Hopkins and guys like that going into the week. So you got to have some guys that are going to be low. You're going to have to guys have some low salary but big upside. So those will be the three guys that I use this week. That you'll probably see in 60-70% of my lineups.
That's great calls, man. Absolutely. Before we close out with our last segment, hometown corner, Seth, do we have any questions for the mailbag here that we can bring up before we close this one out? I want to remind everybody, and I'm sure Seth will post it here. Don't forget to write in some questions for us. If we get enough questions, I want to start coming on Saturday nights doing a mailbag for you guys. We'll address any kind of questions that you have, get your lineups. I want to get you guys 100% ready to kick ass on Sundays. All right, that's my goal here. And so, any questions, anything that you guys want to go over, make sure you write in. Seth will go ahead and post up the email, or you can hit us up on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all of that jazz. And so we're on every social media. Hit us up, submit those questions, and let's get rolling on this stuff. But do you mind if I just go right into the hometown corner then, Rob?
Come on, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh yeah, man. I mean the Bears. Oh man, we got some news too. We got some breaking news on the Bears. Robert Quinn has been traded today. Got traded to the Eagles for 4th round pick.
So you got to start that defense.
Oh yeah, there you go. Eagles will be that much more potent now that they have Robert Quinn. But Quinn has been off to a slow start for the season. I think that's where the 4th round pick was the compensation there. Had he have started the season a little bit better, I think that maybe we could have gotten a little bit more from him. But Foles did finally pull the trigger, let that piece go, getting a lot of cap room for a rebuilding team that just wants more draft picks. The Bears now have 5 draft picks inside the first 4 rounds. So interesting move there. But they're going to The Bears will be visiting Dallas this week, and coming off the huge win Monday night in Foxborough, that had to feel good, right? That was a heck of a game on Monday night. Boy, that was nice to see, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it was.
It was
Yeah.
really interesting. Zappy coming off the bench in relief of Mac Jones, coming off led him to 2 touchdowns off the bat, and then nothing the rest of the game. It was really unfortunate. All sorts of quarterback controversy questions. It sounds like Mac Jones is going to get the starting nod moving forward. By the way, in case you were curious, but as far as Dallas is concerned, Micah Parsons is where my concern lies. Just like it was last week with Matthew Judon, Micah Parsons is even better. Good lord! And so that's going to be an interesting one to watch. I think the pass rush is going to be getting all over the Bears' backfield. David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert could struggle a little bit more in this one than they did last week. But who knows? Like the Bears kind of pulled out a surprising game last week, right? It was a bit of a shocker. So I would expect on paper Dallas's defense to show up a little bit better than New England's did. But oddly enough, the Bears are leading the league in both rushing attempts and rushing yardage this season while maintaining a top 5 yard per carry in the league at 5.2 yards per carry. And that's pretty impressive, you know. And so we'll see. We'll see if the Bears can get it done here. Darnell Mooney will be a long shot bet, I think, in fantasy, going against one of the league's top pass defenses. Trayvon Diggs is one of my favorite corners in the league. The guy's pure boom or bust, though. He's going to go for the pick. He's going to go for it all, which does leave him open to take on some big plays every now and again. And so Mooney will have that chance. The Dallas offense on the other side of the ball started out slow last week in the return of Dak. But they did make some halftime adjustments and came out swinging in the second half. I look for them to continue that kind of momentum coming into this Bears game. The Bears are going to have a tough time containing this unit, though. It is worth noting Zeke did not practice, and it is looking like he is doubtful to play in Sunday's matchup. And so the Cowboys should be without Zeke. Pollard would already be expected to do Pollard things, should get that much more of a workload here. And so against the Bears run defense that is famously terrible this year, I would definitely light Pollard up in any of your leagues that you have him in, including DFS. You might want to check his value in DFS because he could be a smash play for a cheaper price. On the flip side of that, I expect the Bears to keep things on the ground in this one. Last week against the Patriots, their winning recipe to success, 3 players had more than 60 yards on the ground. And so I definitely expect them to attempt to replicate that. Might not work out that way, though, against this defense. For Chicago to have any chance here, I think that Fields is going to have to be running for his life again in this one. One starts to question, though, like how much longer can this kid keep that up?
Well, I mentioned to our partner Mark that when I was watching against the Redskins, when he broke that long, I believe it was a 45-yard run to get you guys down inside the 5. I said for this offense to have a chance, they have to run more design plays for him to run the football. It's clear, that he can do it, and he has success when he does do it. And I was surprised that they didn't. They went, I believe, 4 straight passes against the Redskins inside the 5, and I thought they got down there with like 45 seconds left, so it wasn't like the clock was really an issue there. And I thought
the
that they would. I'm sorry?
The Commanders.
Yeah, I thought that. Yeah, what did I say? The Redskins.
I do it every time. I do it every time.
Commanders. But I thought that they would have probably had at least put some pressure on the defense and done some RPOs down there, so that you can put some pressure on him with his legs, because it's clear that that he's an effective runner, and it's good to see that it looks as if that they've added that to the game plan, at least as of late. So I'm rooting for Justin. He's a hometown kid here from about 15 miles up the road. So I hope that they do turn the corner and get this thing going.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That'd be nice to see. It was nice to see them use some design runs in the last game. It really was. I've been waiting for them to treat Justin Fields a little bit more like Lamar Jackson.
That's the way. For me, that's the way that the game is trending. And I'll text Mark in the middle of the game and like, I don't understand why they're not running Kyler Murray more. He'll run more in the third and the fourth quarter, and I'm not saying running between the tackles, but I'm like 6-7 yards. That kills a defense. When you're constantly in second and short and obviously third and short, those that keeps and particularly with the type of offense they run, they like to run a little tempo. I mean, that's the recipe to winning, particularly when you have a guy that is dynamic as Kyler Murray and Justin Fields, guys like that, but especially for a guy like, and also Justin Fields, and when you start getting first downs, that builds momentum. That gives guys confidence, and it energizes the whole team when they see the quarterback get outside the pocket and run for 15 yards and it's first down and guys are high-fiving, and that what you want is momentum. That's what you want, and first downs, that's what they build. And offenses that pick up first downs, no matter how you pick them up, but if you have a quarterback that is as dynamic as Justin Fields appears to be, you got to use all his weapons. You got to stop. Every time I saw him drop back against Washington, I was like, why are they doing that? Because he was getting sacked. I don't know how many sacks they had that game, but it felt like he got sacked double digits. So anyway, yeah, I agree with you is my point. I'm looking forward to Justin Fields having some more success, and I'm looking forward to seeing him using his legs more.
For sure.
My closing argument, even though I've dropped the Falcons, I think that it's time. This is a quarterback take. It's time to bring Desmond Ridder onto the field. It's time to get that era started. The Falcons are 3-4. Mariota's averaging about 160 yards passing per game, 7 touchdowns. He played 7 games, and you got 7 passing touchdowns. Like this is enough. Enough. The sooner we go ahead and get the Desmond Ridder era started, or just seeing what you have. You got to just see what you have. You spent the mid-round pick on him. Let's see what we got. We know that Marcus Mariota is not leading the Falcons to glory. He's not leading them to the Super Bowl. So I think that it's, Desmond Ridder, particularly, he plays the game similar to Mariota, but I just think he's a better passer. And I think that it's time to get it started. So if y'all want me back in the fold, if somebody find this podcast, send it to Arthur Blank. If y'all want me back, it's time to get the Desmond Ridder era started. And that's my closing argument. I think that I should have probably started with that. We probably should have started the show with that. But the point is, let's get Desmond started. The Mariota, this is enough. There's enough with this 1 touchdown per game. He ain't even throwing 200 yards a game. Okay, let's get that over with. Let's get Desmond Ridder going. So that's the closing argument. We appreciate you guys joining us for the show.
I'd love to see that passing game lit up.
Yeah, I mean, this what time it is, man. What are we doing? 168 yards a game, man. Like
you got 2 top 5 picks. You got Pitts and London. It's like, what are you doing? You use these guys.
Yeah, well, but the offense is running through Algier and Caleb Huntley. Like, what? And then you're gonna have Cordell Patterson. When he gets healthy, he's a guy that can get out. Obviously get to the edges. He can get up. He can run through. He can run between the tackles. He's a guy that he's a dynamic offensive piece. You put hit when you get him back. You have Desmond. You don't want to be breaking Desmond in at the same time he coming back. Let Desmond get 3-4 games, up under his belt, and let's see. The passing game could not get any worse. And I'm sure that maybe Desmond Ridder running out that tunnel going up under center will be a welcome sight, for the skill position players. So, that's my closing argument. It's my plea more than an argument. It's my plea.
Sounds like we closed it out with your hometown corner.
Yeah, and I normally don't do that, but that is a bit of a hometown hometown plea, if you will, for lack of a better term.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for joining us. We'll be back here again, same time, same bat station. Please hit that like, subscribe. You can follow our show at StatlinesMatter on all of our socials, on Facebook, on IG, and everywhere that you can find a podcast, you can find us. So just type in on your phone, StatlinesMatter. You'll find me. You'll find my partner, Mark. We're here every Wednesday night. We're here every Wednesday night. We release a pod. Our normal schedule for release is every Wednesday. So you can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. So thank you guys very much for joining us, and we'll be looking forward to getting back with you next week.
Later.
Peace.